Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. You're with me now, Dr. Muhammad Husni Mohd Amin, Fellow at IKIM Center for Science and Environment Studies, KIAS, on IKIMfm program, Great Works of the Muslim World, airing every Sunday at 5 p.m. In season 2, we discussed the exchanges between the two greats of Islamic scholarship, Ibn Sina and Abu Rayhan Muhammad ibn Ahmad al-Biruni. One episode with Dr. Imran Mustafa from University Malaya on metaphysics, and another episode with Dr. Muhammad Ikhwan Azlan from Selangor International Islamic University on science and mathematics and reality. In this season 4, we had one Muhammad Imran, one Muhammad Kamil from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, discussing al-Biruni's book on the astrological sciences. Today, we take a step back to appreciate the scientific works of al-Biruni, who was not only a scholar, but also someone who's been celebrated for his many works in astronomy, mathematics, ethnography, anthropology, history, and geography. Our special guest today is Dr. Daud Abdul-Fattah Batchelor, who is now visiting fellow at IKIM. He recently completed his adjunct fellowship with the International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies, IAIS Malaysia, where he headed the Science, Technology and Environment Unit. And prior to that, he was Senior Research Fellow at the International Institute of Islamic Civilization and Thought, ISTAC, Kuala Lumpur. Dr. Daud is joining us today to talk more on al-Biruni. Welcome, Dr. Daud.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and Ramadan Kareem to you and all your listeners.
Waalaikumsalam. Allahu Akram, and Ramadan Mubarak to you, Dr. Daud.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm here in Brisbane, Queensland, so my hometown, talking to you. But always nice to be in Malaysia.
Alhamdulillah, we are happy that you have had such a pleasant experience staying with us, and you've lived in Malaysia for quite a number of years, haven't you?
Probably about 23 years altogether. Three of my children were born in Malaysia and two in Indonesia.
MashaAllah. All right, Dr. Daud, we should probably go on to the subject of our discussion today. So, who is al-Biruni, and what do you think qualifies him as a scientist?
Okay, well, I'll. So those are two questions. So I'll answer the first. Abu Ala Rayhan Muhammad al-Biruni, who lived between 440, 362 to 440 Hijri years, and 973 to 148 in the Common Era. So the well-known Western historian George Sarton called him one of the greatest scientists of all time. He was an early exponent of experimental scientific method, and also a pioneer of comparative sociology and comparative religion. So he was born in 973. I'll use the Common Era from now on, in a remote town called Kath on the southern shores of the Aral Sea, now in Uzbekistan. So he spent most of his life in Central Asia and India, and he studied at an early age under the famous astronomer mathematician Abu Nasr Mansur, who was a prince of the ruling Banu Iraq. So at the age of 17, he used his observations of the maximum altitude of the sun to calculate the latitude of his hometown, for instance. And at the age of 22, he showed considerable skill when he published his called Cartography in Arabic, a work on map projections. So he lived at a time of considerable political insecurity, and he had to flee to Ray from his hometown to Ray near modern day Tehran. And there he met the astronomer al-Hujandi, who was observing the median transits of the sun during the solstices, the time separated by 6 months when the sun is closest and furthest from the earth. So he then settled in the northern Persian town of Jurjan near the Caspian Sea. So he did move around quite a bit. And in Jurjan, he wrote a major work called Al-Athar, Al-Baqiya, and Al-Qurun Al-Khaliya, which is known as the remaining signs of past centuries. So this is a comparative study of different calendar systems with historical, astronomical, ethnological, and religious information about the creators of those calendars. In the year 1004, he returned to his homeland, where he became part of the Khwarizm court, and will appreciate that any scholar needs to have a powerful and wealthy sponsor. So he was adopted by the Khwarizm court.
Mhm.
And in 1017, the warrior Sultan Mahmud Subuk Tegun, Mahmud of Ghazni, ruling from Ghazni in Afghanistan, attacked and annexed Biruni's homeland.
Mhm.
So al-Biruni perhaps was forced actually to move to Ghazni. By 1022, Mahmud of Ghazni controlled the northern parts of India, which enabled al-Biruni to conduct extensive observations to determine the latitude of towns in the Punjab and Kashmir border regions. To distance himself from Mahmud, he moved to Lahore, where he wrote the world's first book on comparative religion, focusing on Hinduism and Islam. So he wasn't just a natural scientist; he was also um, a science of a scholar of humanities. On Sultan Mahmud's death in 1030, Mahmud's eldest son, Masud, took power and began to treat al-Biruni more kindly than his father did. Consequently, al-Biruni returned to Ghazni, where he eventually died at the age of 75 in 1050. It seems he never married. He devoted himself fully to scientific studies. Although he did live during a period of great political instability, it is quite amazing that he still managed to conduct innovative research. He was a devout Muslim who displayed no prejudice towards different religious sects, or to different races. So that is a mini biography, and if you like, Dr. Husni, I'll go on and explain why he has a great claim to be one of the world's leading scientists ever.
Yeah, for our viewers' information, Dr. Daud has written an article before which piqued my attention, and which is also one of the reasons why I called him to be featured in our program. So he wrote this article, Al-Biruni, Outstanding Modern Scientist of the Golden Age of Islamic Civilization. So yeah, maybe Dr. Daud, you'd like to maybe tell us why do you think? Ah, yes, that's a book. I think that's edited by Professor Muhammad Hashim Kamali. Yes.
Yes, together with Dr. Alexander Wan
All right.
from the UK.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe you'd like to tell us and also the viewers on why do you think, or what qualifies al-Biruni as a modern scientist?
Okay. Yes. Yeah, he has a magnificent record. And I will actually, because in answering that, I will discuss his scientific outlook before I go on to specific aspects of his discoveries, his scientific discoveries. Um, so, al-Biruni was a polymath. He was, like a lot of classical Muslim scholars, he was able to transcend boundaries. He didn't live in silos. Um, and he wrote mostly in Arabic. He produced 150 titles in a multitude of disciplines. He had 35 titles in astronomy, 4 in astrolabs, 5 in chronology, 9 in geography, 10 in geodesy and mapping theory, 15 in mathematics, and 3 in religion and philosophy, to mention a few. Um, as a pioneer of the scientific method, he was a pioneer of this method. Al-Biruni applied himself to not only qualitatively describing scientific phenomena, but also to quantifying his observations wherever possible using mathematics. He therefore had a surprisingly modern outlook in this context. And he's an inspiration for me because I like to also use probabilities and statistics and quantify statements as much as possible to be more precise myself. And I'm inspired by al-Biruni. Uh, so he had a characteristic, dispassionate research approach, seeking the truth. And this is an encouragement for us as well. In his book, Al-Athar, he wrote, "We must clear our minds from all causes that blind people to the truth, old customs, party spirits, personal rivalry or passion, or the desire for influence." The historian William Durant says that he was very precise and conscientious in statements, frequently admitting his ignorance and promising to pursue his inquiries till the truth emerges from his experimentations. So Zia Shah said that Biruni's scientific method was similar to the modern scientific method in many ways, particularly his emphasis on repeated experimentation, because he was concerned how to conceptualize. He was also, in using experiments, concerned how to conceptualize and prevent both systematic and random errors, such as errors made by small instruments and human errors of observation. So Biruni had an admirable approach regarding the development of ideas through discussion with other scholars. And you already mentioned in the lead up about al-Biruni's had extensive exchange of correspondence with Ibn Sina. Ziauddin Sadar um, compares two different approaches used by the two scholars. He says that unlike Ibn Sina's deductive scientific method, where general and universal questions come first and then lead to experimentation, Biruni developed the inductive scientific method, where universal truths came after once practical experimentation work had been carried out, and then theories could be developed after the discoveries from the experimentation. So al-Biruni criticized Aristotle's followers for their blind adherence to Aristotelian physics and natural philosophy.
Mhm.
In contrast to the philosophers, al-Biruni only accepted mathematical and empirical evidence as reliable. But in saying that, I would contrast him with modern Western scientists who disregard the unseen. Al-Biruni was a practicing Muslim who believed in God Almighty and the Quran. So I'll just go on. That was his scientific method, which was very modern,
Mhm.
and presaged actually the work of Francis Bacon in Britain 500 years later, who was given all the accolades for developing the inductive scientific approach. But al-Biruni preceded him by 500 years. So al-Biruni is particularly known in the fields of astronomy, geodesy, and geography. By the age of 30, he had calculated the Earth's radius to be about 6,340 kilometers, a degree of accuracy that was not exceeded in the West until 500 years later. And by the way, this is only 0.5% error from NASA's calculation of the average radius of the Earth today. 0.5% error. His treatise, the Al-Qunun al-Masudi, has been described as the greatest work on astronomy before the modern era.
Mhm.
In it, Biruni summarized all the contemporary astronomical and related knowledge. Al-Biruni employs mathematical techniques unknown to his predecessors, and these involved an analysis of instantaneous motion and acceleration of heavenly bodies. Frederick Starr praised al-Biruni for his constant urge to quantify whatever he observed and for his inquiring mind. So in this code, the code of Masudi, Biruni hypothesized about the existence of undiscovered continents. Knowing the circumference of the Earth, he had calculated already. He set all the known geographical locations onto his new map of the world using their latitudes and longitudes. So when Biruni transposed these data onto his map of the Earth, he noticed that the entire breadth of Eurasia spanned only 40% of the globe. This left 60% of the Earth's surface unaccounted for. So he concluded that within the vast expanse of ocean between Europe and Asia, unknown land masses must be present. And he believed that they were populated by human beings. So Starr, on this basis, believes Biruni is at least as deserving of the title of the discoverer of North America as any of the Vikings. Only after 500 years did anyone else apply such rigorous analysis to global exploration. So he carried out his breathtaking intellectual exploration while living far from the sea in a landlocked region of Central Asia. Al-Biruni conducted research in support of the Muslim obligation to pray towards Mecca. To determine the Qibla, he said one should first know the accuracy, the longitude and latitude of Mecca accurately. So these values could then be applied to a spherical triangle, after which the angle from the local meridian to the direction of Mecca could be determined. Also, I'll just mention in the field of geology and mineralogy, which is also one of my disciplines, that through numerous experiments, al-Biruni laid down the principle that the specific gravity of an object corresponded to the volume of water it displaces per unit weight. So using this concept, he was able to take very accurate measurements of the densities of various elements, including gold, mercury, lead, silver, bronze, and these measurements correspond almost exactly to what we have today, actually. So he's very accurate and precise. So also al-Biruni's work is proof that Islam can inspire great advances in scientific knowledge.
Yeah, fascinating, Dr. Daud. I like it when you say that logic played an important role in the discoveries made by al-Biruni. I am reminded that, and also how these discoveries later very much influence European scientists and thinkers. Uh, I am reminded also in the 16th century how Copernicus he was using the data by people like MashaAllah, and then Al-Urdi, Nasruddin Tusi, and Ibn Shatir to talk about uh, how they managed to shift the attention from Ptolemaic geocentric theory of the universe to the heliocentric idea of planetary revolution around the sun, and also what you said earlier on logic, how the data that he thinks about uh, allowed him to arrive to the idea that there is an uncounted landmass, which later turned out to be the North American continent. I'm reminded of Ibn Nafis, who came up with
Mhm.
the idea of a cardiopulmonary system, that the heart uh, is the organ that pumps oxygenated blood or to the rest of the body, while the lungs is actually the organ that absorbs and absorbs oxygen and expels carbon dioxide from the body. Now, he's knowing Ibn Nafis, he said that he arrived it by way of logic also, without having to cut open a human cadaver. He
Very
looked
impressive.
into he looked into the carcasses of animals, and he was able to infer through logic that the way that human bodies work is also the same, or pretty much parallels those of the animals. Now, coming to our next my next question to you, Dr. Daud. So which of all of al-Biruni's works you consider to establish him as scientist? We've had several episodes, like I said before. The As'ilah wal Ajwibah is his correspondence with Ibn Sina, but these are on metaphysics and science, and also on mathematics and reality. But what are the works that you think that you have read of al-Biruni, which made you, which gave you the idea uh, to name him as the modern scientist?
Well, like I have mentioned, a few works here, and time doesn't permit to go into, in detail, all of his works. Uh, but I believe, like just the few examples that I've provided indicate sufficiently. Like it's not like such a thing as just the scientific discoveries that he made, but it's his approach, his modern scientific approach, his inductive approach,
Yes.
and uh, the fact that he was inspired by the Quran, by the Islamic teachings, to seek for the truth, because there are a lot of um, like folk tales about and about how the earth originated, and the universe, and in the past pre-Islamic, but in the Quran, it's a book which is a revelation, the last revelation to humanity. So it presages a time when people on earth will be having much greater knowledge about the natural sciences. And so the Quran does talk about many things related to natural sciences. So no doubt this had inspired Biruni. Um, I mean, another thing that was very valuable. I mean, all of these are valuable items that I have mentioned. He was very good on calculating the latitude and longitude of cities and measuring the distance between them. And this was a great benefit for the rulers to know the geographic layout of the territory that they are responsible for. And that was very useful. Um, and it's like we're talking about modern science, say, but
Yeah.
in reality, he was a polymath, and this is something that we need to reestablish today, because the fault of Western universities is that too many people are sitting in their silos of their disciplines and not
Yeah.
talking to each other. And in reality, to solve some of the modern problems of today, it requires multidisciplinary knowledge, particularly the application of revelation and scientific knowledge. For instance, I wrote an article published in 2016 in a Springer book of collected conference papers about the need that we need to uh, train our desires and our egos, um, so that we can control our nafs and reduce our consumption. Um, and I was particularly talking about shopaholics, for instance,
Yeah.
um, that we are producing too much waste in the world and we're consuming too many resources. So to actually resolve this problem effectively, like I did my research in the literature, but I couldn't find much in the traditional Western literature. And what it requires is taskiyat and nafs and seeking qana'ah, contentment. So, in fact, this was an example of applying waste management and psychology. Um, you know, uh, think whether you need something before you buy it. Is it a need or is it a want? Like, and religious teachings were all needed to address this issue, and in particular, this is the number one issue in the climate change, to reduce the consumptive um, consumption level of the very many of the very wealthy, who are consuming exorbitant amounts, and also wealthy countries, and are mainly responsible for climate change. It's not population growth in the poor countries like Nigeria.
Yeah.
It's the consumptive levels in the wealthy countries, such as the United States. So this is an example of using a polymath approach,
Yeah.
using religious, scientific teachings together to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So
Very
actually,
interesting. Yeah.
he spread across many of these disciplines, including, I mentioned at the beginning, um, he is considered to be um, also like a modern um, scholar in comparative religion,
Yeah.
because he conducted this study on Hinduism and Islam. And the specialists in that field of comparative religion say that his approach was as good as, if not better than, anything that was being applied up until the end of the 19th century. So
Right.
that is quite an allocate. Yeah.
All right. Dr. Daud, we are running out of time, but maybe you can uh, provide a conclusion to our discussion today. Why is it relevant today? I mean, al-Biruni.
Okay. Well, his spirit of excitement in discovering new knowledge based on the truth, following the Sunnatullah, unraveling the Sunnatullah of the natural universe and the human sciences can also inspire us today. And it shows the relevance of Islam to al-Biruni's work, like his call for like truth, truth telling, and justice in your experimentation.
Yeah.
It's a call to investigate the wonders of Allah's creation. And I would just refer to Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 164. I don't know whether I have time to read it. Maybe
So
not.
okay, I think yeah.
I'll refer the listeners. And his wish to facilitate accuracy in determining the Qibla for Salah from any location means that he had the empathy with the Ummah in general and all Muslims to help them in that respect. So he is like many other classical scholars, Al-Razi and others who were polymaths, applied principles and investigations across disciplines that showed, firstly, that the same principles could be applied in different disciplines, and secondly, that solutions to some problems require knowledge from different disciplines together. And also, a number of al-Biruni's discoveries have been claimed by European scholars. So we need to be aware of this, and we need to present, to the world, the strength of Islamic scholarship, and that we can regain this by applying the same principles today, and this is the means by which Muslim scientists can gain great heights in fields that Western science approach cannot properly investigate and find solutions. That we have an extra advantage because we have a more comprehensive, holistic approach. I would just say that the example of al-Biruni hypothesizing the existence of continents where the Americas are today, you can imagine if Islam had spread to Southeast Asia earlier, that the great seafarers, the Malays, the Cham, and the Polynesians could have taken al-Biruni's suggestion and gone off and looked for those continents in advance of the Europeans. But then again, some people will say there is evidence that the Malays or the Polynesians or both had discovered the Americas anyway before the Europeans. So that is another chapter to be written. Inshallah, I might participate in that.
Inshallah. We thank you very much, Dr. Daud, for being on this show. We hope to see you again in the near future, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Look forward.
To our viewers, that was Dr. Daud Abdul-Fattah Batchelor, a visiting fellow at IKIM, talking about the scientific works of al-Biruni. I'm Dr. Muhammad Husni Mohd Amin. Until next time, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi